yes, well, everyone knows Malta has been regulating online gaming since 2004. We take an open approach to regulation, and that we regulate all products that can be regulated that fall within the definition of our gaming, the gaming definition, which is presented in our regulation. And we are also based, as also most people would know here, that our framework is founded on the principle of mutual recognition, based on the freedom of services being provided throughout the EU. We actually do not actually require operators which are licensed in other EEA jurisdictions to be licensed in Malta. We recognize them. Obviously, we may impose certain additional requirements if so is required in order to be able to be compliant with our law. Interesting to say at this stage is that Malta is at the moment heavily engaged in an overhaul of the regulation. We hope we'll be able to show something to you by next year. The new regulation is actually going through the legislative process. We have begun the legislative local process. That is basically it. I mean, we are actually reviewing, rethinking everything we have been doing. Although what we do so far is pretty successful, we feel that it's time to cancel everything and have a clean slate. Sometimes when you keep amending, you end up with something that doesn't look like what it used to look like. So we want to amend that. We want to change that. I definitely have to agree with my previous my colleagues that, I mean, I think the answer to driving out the illegal market, however so one may define it, is by having a good regulation. It's the first step. It's no use discussing the moralities of gambling. It's there, it's always going to be there. The moment you prohibit a product, it's going to go to the illegal market, you won't have control. So good regulation, an open regulation, an open approach to regulation. I often hear, I caught part of the panel this morning where my colleagues and former colleagues from other regulators were discussing the regulator-operator channels, which I think are extremely important. Obviously, a line has to be drawn because you can't be taken over by an operator as a regulator. You need to be aware of your limits. But open discussion, understanding the exigencies of the industry, the constantly developing industry. We are in an industry where there is constant development. The law is always going to lag behind. So the regulator must come up with put down policy, must come up with policy that is going to comply with the requirements of the industry. So that's one, that's good regulation is the answer. Secondly, I'll pick up on a point that Daria mentioned earlier. I mean, cooperation. Cooperation is key. And I see that from my earlier days working in this role to now, I've already seen an improvement in the way things are done across the European member states and even sometimes not European member states, outside of Europe. There has to be discussion, there has to be an understanding, I mean obviously respect for each other's policy. I mean we all have different policies, we all have different frameworks, so we need to respect those. But we need to cooperate to the extent that we can with other regulators in order to help, obviously, what we can. I mean, the obvious question here is, but would Malta, would Malta enforce the laws of other jurisdictions? Of course not. I mean, we take a policy, we would enforce our jurisdictional law, we enforce our framework, we cooperate to the extent that our framework has been obviously breached, and we will do that. But other than that, we are based on the basic principles of the European Union, and so that we cannot do. So I'd like to talk about B2Bs as well, so it makes sense that I follow on from Richard. The Maltese framework we've been regulating the B2B sector since the inception of the regulation. However, we have taken quite I would say a restrictive approach. It's quite a narrow approach to B2Bs, as in what B2Bs we regulate. And we feel that the way the market has developed in recent years, even months, our kind of tailor-made solution is not really helping the industry anymore. It targets too small a part of the industry in order to stimulate development, to help growth. And in fact, with the new regulation, it would be interesting to note that we will be looking at B2Bs in a much, I would say, taking a much wider approach. And rather than boxing them just into the B2B sector, we will be actually looking at the types of services, the types of B2B services the operator will be providing to other operators, and applying controls according to what kind of services they are offering. So I'm talking the widest possible sense. I'm talking about the provision of game software. I'm talking about the provision of a platform. I'm talking about possibly even going into certain the provision of the odds calculation, the risk assessment, the risk management, odds compilation, and targeting a regulation for the particular product that is being provided. And like that, we'll be able, rather than take this boxed approach, kind of see what box it fits in, rather than looking at the product that is presented to us and regulating it specifically. And I think this is I think it's key to helping the industry grow. I mean, the industry, whether you regulate them or not, the industry is based, the B2C offer is based on what the B2B can offer you and what the B2B can be regulated for. So I think it's important that we continue watching the B2B space, because all the developments have been based on their development, on the B2B development. Liquidity. I mean, we obviously are we are for liquidity. We feel that we feel yes that there should be the opportunity for international liquidity in the sector. Obviously, it would depend on the agreements between the specific regulators. We are open to it, but we'll have to see whether when we come to the terms of the agreement with another regulator, we have to agree on the terms. I guess that is where the challenge is. But yes, we are for it. Before the objective of it, we'll have to see when it comes to the crux of things.